going on? It's your boy Luke here for our value picks at the American Express. We have a full field event, 156 golfers, a irregular cut as well because it's happening after 3 days, which is going to add a little bit of strategy into our cut making process. And of course, it's going to give some of the higher volatile guys down low a little bit more of a chance to get through that cut line. So we'll hop into my favorite 6 plays, price $7,500 and below to help you save that salary. And of course, spend up for some of those stud tier options in these large field tournaments. So with that being said, let's get right into it. All right, guys, on the screen, you can see our projections once again. And the first value play we're going to touch on for this week is going to be Sebastian Munoz here at $7,500. So Sebastian Munoz, you know him as one of the more aggressive players week in and week out on the PGA Tour. He's going to have a prolifically high birdie or better percentage pretty much no matter the state of his game. It really comes down to whether he's clicking into other 3 statistical categories. He's routinely one of the best approach players week in and week out on tour. The off the tee play can get a little bit hairy at times. He tends to be inaccurate when he doesn't have it. And of course, the putter, one of the streakiest assets of any player at any shots gained category in the entire PGA Tour. The guy is no stranger to going out, gaining 8 strokes putting 1 week, and then going out and losing 5 to 6 the next. So you can see in terms of my rankings, in terms of course fit, he's not jumping off the board in any one specific category. Top 50 across all 3, which at the very least, it's nice to see that consistency. In terms of a total form rank as well, he's also top 50 in the field. But when we hop over here to the last 24 measured rounds is where we really start to see him pop. So he's at the top of the list here. You see he's not gaining off the tee, also not gaining around the green, but we love to see that he's gaining on approach. The fact that he's gaining nearly 0.4 shots gained per round on approach is one of the best numbers that you're going to see from a Sebastian Munoz. And granted, we haven't seen him very often. He only played a few times during that fall swing. But the last time he came out, it was a top 5 finish at the RSM Classic. And 2 weeks before that, another top 5 finish. He's somebody who tends to get hot with those irons. And if he's going to continue at even half the rate he was before, if he's getting 0.2 strokes around on approach, could very well carry himself with the putter. So what's to love here, first and foremost, is historically right around neutral on Bermuda grass. He is a loser putting for his career. He's gotten much better of late, though. That's why we've seen the birdie or better percentage get as prolific as it is. See, top 10 on the PGA Tour in birdie or better percentage. Par 4 scoring is right up there, too. Top 50 in the world. Driving distance, he does get it well out there, which is nice to see. And really where he's making his hay, and is really encouraging for this week, is the 150 to 175 range. Because we're dealing with relatively short golf courses, almost every player is going to have at the most 175 yards into these greens, making this 150 to 175 yard bucket extremely important this week. So that's great to see. He is solid with his long irons as well. So overall with Sebastian Munoz, you're getting from far from a safe play. This is somebody who's extremely volatile. He's getting you that high birdie or better percentage though, but with La Quinta in play, same thing with the Nicklaus tournament course. And if the stadium course is going to play to the same difficulty it did last year, it was the easiest course on the entire PGA Tour. You're going to need guys that are that aggressive, guys that are going to be willing to take risks into these pins. Sebastian Munoz is definitely your guy there. So for some of these large field tournaments, it's going to be one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. For cash, probably wouldn't be in my player pool. He's a little bit too volatile for that. But you guys can see coming in with 5.6% expected ownership. I'm going to be a low-owned leverage play that I will be taking advantage of. Next up, we have Taylor Moore here at $7,300. He was really the talk of the town coming out of the Korn Ferry Tour. Everyone was talking about his made cut streak. The guy was extremely consistently posting top 25s. It's kind of been far from that here on the PGA Tour. It's been more of Jekyll and Hyde, more hit or miss than anything. See, in terms of the metrics, they do love him because he is so good on approach, so good with the putter. He's going to be a great course fit no matter the golf course here. You can see on Bermuda grass right around neutral, so I'm not really hurting or helping him there. But when we go ahead and take a look at the recent form metrics, this is really where he starts to differentiate himself. So first and foremost, gainer off the tee. The approach play we'll get to here in a second, but gaining around the green, gaining putting, just been very consistent in pretty much all 4 major statistical categories. This negative right here on approach is mostly due to one event where he lost over 7 strokes on approach. So if you go ahead, take that out of the sample size, he is gaining about a quarter of a stroke per round on approach, which is a more reliable number for Taylor Moore, right? If you have one of those severe outliers, you're taking a relatively small sample size, it's going to heavily skew it. In this case, it even takes it past the neutral mark. So Taylor Moore, if he's going to go out and gain across all 4 major statistical categories, he's top 60 in the world for birdie or better percentage. Again, I'll remind you guys, these are world ranks over here for the stat ranks. So top 60 in world birdie or better percentage, very solid on par 4s, much like a Sebastian Munoz. Go ahead and take a look at the driving stats. He might not be the longest. He's still above average there at number 92, but tends to be very accurate, which will come in handy here for the stadium course with all the water in play. And if we take a look at some of the putting metrics, they haven't really been very good of late, right? That's why you've seen him just been a slight gainer on the greens. And when he was posting wins, top 5s over there on the Korn Ferry Tour, that was when Taylor Moore was gaining 2, 3, maybe even 4 strokes putting in a round. That's well within his baseline, particularly on Bermuda grass, which tends to historically be one of his better surfaces. So he's coming in at relatively low ownership as well. Right now I have him at 7.6% owned, which is a little bit higher than somebody like a Sebastian Munoz. But for this 7K range, there are quite more chalky options. Now moving on to Hayden Buckley, who is going to be a chalk play this week. Anybody that uses any type of statistical simulation is going to be getting a ton of Hayden Buckley. So he's $7,200. He is a top 5 course fit, a top 3 course fit at all 3 golf courses. The recent form, top 6 in this field, which again, this guy is a Korn Ferry Tour graduate, just making his first few starts out here on the PGA Tour. Already has a 2nd place finish, multiple top 10s. Early on in the fall, he was just posting made cut after made cut after made cut. So not a surprise to see him come in as the 3rd ranked play in all of my modeling. So let's go ahead and hop into the recent form metrics, because for Hayden Buckley, they are outstanding. So hopping over to the summary for Hayden Buckley here at $7,200, gaining 0.4 strokes per round off the tee. Ridiculous. This isn't really a bomber either. This is somebody who's doing it with the accuracy and being above average with the distance. Approach, a third of a stroke per round, just a little bit above that. The around the green, we'll get to here in a second. And the putting, 0.2 strokes gained per round, which is right around his average for Bermuda grass. So it's not like he's putting well above his baseline. That's not why he's having these results. It's because of this ball striking. And let's go ahead and touch on around the green this week. Because we're dealing with extremely easy golf courses where you're going to see 7 to 8 under par, the only course where I'm really waiting around the green is the stadium course. And a lot of that comes down to the bunkering. It's a Pete Dye design, so if you do miss with your irons, you're going to put yourself in trouble. But what really helps out Hayden Buckley is the approach play. He's one of the best players in this field, particularly over these last 24 measured rounds. So it's $7,200. If he's going to make sure to keep himself out of trouble, he's not going to have to worry about that around the green game, which can get you into trouble at times. I expect him to have another huge week. You see, he's top 70 in the world in birdie or better percentage, which is always good to see. Great on par 4 scoring. Going over here to the greens and regulation, he's number 6 in the world. And again, if he's going to keep himself out of trouble, his shots gained on approach isn't near like half a stroke per round, right? Most of the guys up there with the greens and regulation percentage are right around half a stroke per round. It's because Hayden Buckley, he might hit greens, but he might be a little bit more conservative, hit to the middle of them, hit it to 25, 30 feet, rather than trying to hit it to 5 feet every time. So while we want guys that are a little bit aggressive this week, if you're looking for a cut maker, someone for cash, this is exactly who we're looking for, right? Somebody who plays with a very smart approach. Again, from the 125 to 150, he's number 54 in the world. 100 from that really key category, 150 to 175. That's more than passable, right? Again, these are world ranks. So for the field, he's probably top 50 in this field. And putting from 20 to 25 feet, that's one of the more scoring ranges. Same thing with its 15 to 20 feet, top 3 in the world. So pretty much no matter where you look at Hayden Buckley, the metrics are telling us that he's in a very good stout of form here. And again, a very good course fit with his ball striking and the putting ability on Bermuda. Let's move on to our next value play here, guys. It's going to be Taylor Pendrick. We're going right back to him, doubling down on Taylor Pendrick. I played him last week at the Sony Open, mostly because of the pedigree, right? This is somebody who long-term I think is much better than the $7,000 price tag. In terms of the Korn Ferry Tour graduates, right up there with a Hayden Buckley, a Taylor Moore, and a few of the other ones we'll get to here in a second. There's a lot of the new guys on the block I'll be playing this week. And quite frankly, because the event sets up for it. It resembles more of a Korn Ferry Tour event this week. Usually they're playing new golf courses at almost every event every year for the Korn Ferry Tour. There are a few stops that they go to year in and year out, but a lot of the time these guys are playing a course for the very first time. So it does not make me, I don't worry about them as much as some of these other tour pros, right? They're used to a routine, going to the same golf course, playing 4 rounds, that kind of thing over and over again. Taylor Pendrith, all these other Korn Ferry Tour guys, they're just going out there and trying to score low. And the one thing about this golf tournament is the winners usually right on 25, 26 under par. Same thing with these Korn Ferry Tour events. So if anything, they're going to be the most comfortable this week. First and foremost, what we know about Taylor Pendrith. Let's go over here to the shots gained metrics. So he's a ball striker and of late has not had the approach play. That's why we've seen him struggle over these last 3-4 events. He looks really good at the Bermuda Championship, but unfortunately we didn't have shots gained metrics there. So that is not reflected here in the approach metrics right there. And as a result, he would have been a clear gainer. He gained nearly 8 strokes that week on approach. So again, much like the statistics we were talking about before, where the sample size really does matter, especially some of those outliers. He would look a lot better on paper if it weren't for that performance. Let's go ahead and talk about what he's great at, though. First off, gaining on putter. He's gained 0.1 strokes for his career on the surface. Before last week, that was closer to 0.3 shots gained per round. Again, he didn't have the biggest sample size on that surface. But for his career, he's a gainer. That's great to see. He's been gaining of late with the putter. And if he can recapture that magic on approach, he's going to be in a very good situation this week. Another thing I really like about Pendrith here is the off the tee setup. So first and foremost, a bomber. He's number 21 in the world in driving distance, averages well over 315 yards per drive. And at La Quinta and at the Nicklaus tournament course, we have some massive fairways. We also have rough that isn't very penal, even at the stadium course. So as long as you're not hitting it into water, Taylor Pendrith is going to have a huge advantage off the tee. Something to note with Taylor Pendrith as well, if we go and look at some of these putting stats, which again, haven't been as good as they typically are. He's usually closer to a half a stroke gained per round with the putter. Number 33 from the 10 to 15 feet. Number 37 from that 15 to 20 feet. These are the scoring ranges where you're going to get a lot of those birdie or better type of opportunities where you're really going to separate yourself from the field, and that's where he excels. So again, it really comes down to that approach play. If he can start to hit greens like he was before, like he was at the Bermuda Championship, going to be very live to not just contend this week, but very well win. If you look at his ownership down here at just $7,000, he's coming in as one of the lower owned options in this range at just 3.1%. Obviously, this 1.1% going to Martin Laird, going to change, should be 0 for somebody that withdrew. But at the same time, I don't expect a lot of that to go to Taylor Pendrith, right? I expect it to be a little bit evenly distributed through this range. And we have guys up here at 4%, even 5% that are higher owned, that in my opinion have lower upside than somebody like a Taylor Pendrith. Let's move on to our last 2 value plays. First and foremost, Davis Riley at $6,800. So if we take a look at his course fits, he's a very solid course fit at the La Quinta course. That's a ball striker's paradise. High birdie or better percentage type players tend to excel there. So not a surprise to see that he's coming in at number 12, but top 37 at the stadium, number 26 at the Nicklaus course. And we look at his recent metrics, much like some of these other Korn Ferry Tour guys that I'm trying to target, they look great. You know, some of the best metrics in the entire world. So let's go ahead and find him here. Where is he at? Davis Riley. There he is. Sorry, I was completely overlooking him. So there we go. He's gaining everywhere but around the green. But much like we mentioned before with Hayden Buckley, outside the stadium course, not that big of a factor, right? You're looking at greens that are relatively large. Those bunkers around the greens can be devilish. But if you look at his approach stats, he's been excellent, right? 0.2 shots gained approach per round, 0.25 shots gained off the tee per round. Very solid with the ball striking. I mean, that's the word that we got on him out of college, coming out of Alabama, is that he looks like a mini Justin Thomas with his ball striking. In terms of the putting on Bermuda grass, for his career, getting 1/4 of a stroke per round on it, which is actually better than what we've seen of late. So if we see some positive regression with the flat stick, could go out and have a really solid week given the ball striking that we know he's going to have. He's top 50 in the world in birdie or better percentage, showing that he's definitely aggressive with his play. He's great from the 50 to 125 yard range, which he's aggressive with his off the tee play. With some of the driving distance that we've seen from him, you see he's number 73 in the world, which doesn't look like all that much, but that's still 312 yards per drive. He's really getting it out there. Somebody who can turn it up if he wants to as well. He has that extra gear that a lot of these younger players tend to have. In terms of the putting, if we take a look at the recent metrics for Davis Riley, they're not really popping off the board, right? You can see from these scoring ranges, he's great from the 15 to 20 range, which is awesome to see. You'd love to see that from the 10 to 15 range though, right? So if he can go start to make some of those putts from that 10 to 15 range this week, tap into that off the tee play, that approach play that we've seen from him to start his career, he's going to have a massive week here. we take a look at the ownership on him, it's not popping off the board either at just 2.1% owned. You're able to get a ton of leverage on a Davis Riley. And he's somebody who I don't think just contends this week, but again, has a very good shot to top 5. And if he has that magical week with the putter, which I'm not expecting that from a Davis Riley, but if he pulls a Hideki and gains 6-7 strokes on the greens, he's taking this thing home with a win. So I do have an outright bet on him as an extreme outright. I mean, we saw people like Adam Long win here a few years ago. We saw Landry come out and win at 200-1. There's crazier things that have happened and in crazier situations. Now moving down to our last value play, it's going to be Sahith Theegala at $6,700. In terms of the recent form metrics, great fit at the stadium course, right? He's got an all-around game. He gains across all 4 major statistical categories. Like Quinta and Nicklaus, he's not the best course fit because of the birdie or better percentage. He is a little bit of a safer player, isn't as aggressive as some of these other Korn Ferry Tour graduates, but he's also put up some really solid performances, right? He did have that little bit of a Sunday meltdown when he was in contention early on in the fall, but outside of that, not really anything to harp on in terms of negatives. He is gaining nearly a third of a stroke per round on Bermuda grass. And we go over to the shots gain metrics down here at $6,700. Again, gaining everywhere but off the tee. That was skewed heavily by that Sunday meltdown. Hit multiple balls into the trees, had to take it unplayable. That's really going to affect your shots gained off the tee, particularly when we're using just a 24-round sample size. But it's great to see that for his career, he's much better on Bermuda grass than we've seen of late, so we can expect some regression there. He's gaining around the green, gaining with approach, which, again, we heard from Theegala coming out of college. The guy just striped his irons. He was also very long off of the tee. So we can expect some regression off the tee just based on his baseline statistics, but also with the fairways this week, right? At the Nicklaus tournament course, also at La Quinta, some of the largest fairways in all of the tour. So the metrics don't look great, especially if you scroll through them. A lot of the dark reds over here, decent driving distance. We know he's one of the longer players. Decent green and regulation percentage, but just a lot of room for improvement. And if he's going to show any type of improvement, given his baseline and the type of pedigree player that he is, he's going to be a very sneaky option at a very nice price tag at just $6,700. In terms of the ownership, just 1.9%. So trivial ownership right there. You put him in 5 or 6 of your lineups, you're going to be well over the field. So really like him. I like a lot of these other Korn Ferry Tour graduates as well, and think that they're great plays for this week. That's all I've got for my value picks here for the American Express. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments who you guys have as your favorite value for this week. Maybe it's one of these Korn Ferry Tour graduates that I mentioned here in the video, or one of these well-established veterans down low that you think's a great course fit. Whatever the case, I would love to hear from you guys, so make sure to go ahead and comment that below. We are going to have our fades and sleepers coming out this evening here for this week's contest. Of course, some of the more overhyped and overlooked players going into these GPPs, and our live stream tomorrow evening, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, covering the weather, our full player poll, any ownership discussions that need to be had, and of course any of your questions down in the live chat. So I will put a link down in the description of this video at some point today, so make sure to go ahead and check that out. Put the notification on for that, so when I go live at 7 p.m. you get a notification and are able to go and stop on by. As always, I always appreciate all of your support here on the channel. We are getting also close to 500 subscribers. In fact, probably when a few of you go by to try and subscribe right now, probably already going to be past 500 subscribers. But I want to go ahead and thank you. Just one more milestone closer to 1,000. So let's go ahead and keep that ball rolling. If you haven't liked the video as well, make sure you guys go ahead and do that as well. Until next time, guys, good luck with all of your lineups for this weekend. Look forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday evening for the live stream, and let's get this cash.